Hello, welcome to the first session of the expressive drawing course. In this first exercise, we're going to be looking at drawing from a natural object. In my case, this twisty piece of dried seaweed, I think it is. And what I'm going to be encouraging you to do is to exaggerate and play with the shapes. So these three drawings are all from this same object. This one exaggerating its shapes, this one taking it even further, and this one becoming completely abstract. So you might decide that you want to stay fairly realistic, exaggerate a lot, or work abstractly. That's up to you. Here's another example underneath. Working from rope, but exaggerating its twisting, unraveling quality. I'm going to talk you through the process step by step before demonstrating. So here's my object, and I started by exploring it, trying to get to know it using a continuous line. It's a great way to get you focused and really looking at the detail. And I've looked at it from a couple of different angles. And then I've tried to find a few words to describe the qualities that I find most interesting. So twisting, undulating, weaving qualities, and that's what I'm going to try and bring out in my drawings. You might find this sheet helpful to give you a start. You can always pause the screen if you want to look more carefully through those words. Anyway, following on from that, the first step was to sketch out the object. I'm just going to push it up very slightly so you can see all of it. Just to sketch out the object, exaggerating that curviness, those lovely bobbles at the bottom, the way it undulates and weaves around itself. Then apply, in this case, the dark tones, all of the dark areas. Don't forget, put a light from one angle or sit next to a window so your light is all coming from one angle, and you'll see those tones much easier. And then putting on the light tones, blending it together, working those two tones into each other. Notice around the edge that sometimes there's a dark edge, sometimes there's a light edge. That's really important if you're going to make this look three-dimensional. So those are the steps. That was using charcoal and chalk. I'm going to have a go at doing another drawing from this, excuse me, but I'm going to try using white paint and marker pen. Okay, here goes. I've got myself a pencil, a marker pen, permanent marker, Sharpie type pen, some white emulsion paint on a lid, and I'm using a little bit of brown paper. You could use cardboard, wrapping paper, anything that's got just a bit of a texture, nothing too smooth. And my object is just out of view, but I'm thinking about the words that I said earlier, which were weaving, undulating, twisting. I'll start with that wonderful sort of grape-like knobbly head that this thing has. Sketching it out in the pencil and then looking at how it weaves, trying to exaggerate that weaviness of it. I don't have to draw things in exactly the same place as I see them. I can be a little bit more creative with it. I can allow myself to play. I'm using the object as a reference point for these sort of shapes. I'll make those bobbles bigger. Come on, exaggerate that much more. Playing around with it, trying to exaggerate those interesting shapes. I think that'll do to start with. And now I'm looking at my object, and with my brush I'm going to start with white paint, and I'm looking for the areas where it's light. So I've got these sort of areas here, and it's kind of light in here. Catching that top edge there, and catching all of these sort of top edges, that lightness sort of twisting around. I've dried my white paint, and you may notice I've added some extra areas in. I thought that looked a little bit empty. I'm looking at the object and I'm getting inspiration from it. I'm looking at the way the light falls on the object. I'm looking at the shapes of the object, but I'm not slavishly copying it. Drawing is about observing, but not necessarily recording everything. It's taking what you want from the object. I'm working, as I said, with white paint and pen. You could be working with charcoal and chalk or Tipp-Ex or pencils. The principle's the same. I'm started with light and I'll add dark. You could do it the other way around. You could start with dark and add light. So these are kind of spherical, and I'm going to start to put on tone on the opposite side. So if I've got a crescent of white, I'll have a dot of black. Work its way out. More shadow in between, of course, just to emphasize through there. Trying not to make it too solid an outline around every single sphere. Don't want it to look too solid. And start to look at, again, back at my object, start to look where the lights and darks fall. There's usually opposite the light, there's a dark edge. There's a kind of twisting coming through here. A much darker sort of edge. A little bit of darkness there. It twists around. And there's my finished drawing. And before we move on to the next exercise, there's going to be a short slideshow of work by students doing this technique. See you in a minute.